Hello everybody, welcome to our second day of VBS. I am super excited to share another story with you and talk about another hero of faith. Today our hero of faith is Joshua. You might remember Joshua from yesterday's lesson. He was an Israelite that was entrusted by Moses to lead the people into battle. He was a pretty courageous guy. When Moses died, Joshua became the new leader of the people and led the Israelites to the promised land of Canaan to conquer what God had promised them. Today's story is a very well-known one. Grab your Bible and let's read through the story together. It's a little bit longer than yesterday's passage. We will be in the 6th book of the Bible, the book named after our hero, the book of Joshua. We are starting in chapter 6 and we'll be reading verses 1 through 21. Now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one came in. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse and the army will go up, everyone straight in." So Joshua son of Nun called the priests and said to them, "Take up the ark of the covenant of the Lord and have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of it." And he ordered the army, "Advance, march around the city with an armed guard going ahead of the ark of the Lord." When Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward, blowing their trumpets, and the ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the ark. All this time the trumpets were sounding. But Joshua had commanded the army, "Do not give a war cry, do not raise your voices. Do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then shout." So he had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, circling it once. Then the army returned to camp and spent the night there. Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets went forward, marching before the ark of the Lord and blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord while the trumpets kept sounding. So on the 2nd day they marched around the city once and returned to the camp. They did this for 6 days. On the 7th day they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except on that day they circled the city 7 times. The 7th time around, when the priests sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the army, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise, you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it. All the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord and must go into his treasury." When the trumpets sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. They devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed with the sword every little living thing in it, men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys. If you watched our skit for today already, you got to see how that scene might have played out. And if you didn't, I definitely recommend watching it after this video so you can get a visual picture. Now, back to the story. I bet Joshua and the Israelites were pretty confused when God told them to march around the city walls. I bet the people of Jericho looked down from the walls and wondered why in the world the Israelites were marching around. That's not how normal battles were won and cities were conquered. But God's ways are not our ways. Just like how God won the battle in our story yesterday. The Israelites trusted God and put their hope and their courage in Him and did as He said. Because of their faith, God brought down the walls of Jericho and provided a way for the Israelites to conquer. Just like Joshua, we have to follow some confusing commands today. For example, in the New Testament, in Matthew 5, verses 43 through 44, Jesus said, "You have heard that it was said, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." When someone is mean to us or does something that we don't like, our initial reaction is to be mean to them and to pay them back. But God tells us to do just the opposite. He tells us to love people that are mean to us and, in fact, to pray for them. Our God is a God of love. He loves each person on this earth so much and wants us to show that love to everyone we meet. Think of some ways and talk with your family about how you can show God's love today to your family, to your friends, to strangers you might meet on the street. I'll see you tomorrow for our final day of VBS. God bless you and have a great day.